I was shown a picture of a boy when I was only 14 years old. This was a boy I would have to marry. I didn't have a say in the matter, and I was given no choice. Me and my two sisters and brother were raised in a strict Punjabi household in northern England. My sisters and I especially were not allowed to really be heard. We were just to be seen. We were not allowed to date, as our marriages were to be arranged. If we didn't do as we were told, we were punished. And so we kind of knew exactly what was expected. We were raised to be subservient. And if for some reason, like we didn't do as we were told, or we had left a dish, sometimes we got put in the cellar. We also knew that we would have to get married, and it would be an arranged marriage. A man came over to our shop. The man showed a picture of a boy to my mom. So in the beginning, I didn't know like what was going on. All I saw was him holding a picture, and they were whispering and looking at me occasionally. And then after the man left, my mom came over and showed me a picture of a boy. And she said, "This is a very good looking boy. You are very lucky to have a chance to marry a boy like this. He's good looking and very well educated. What do you think? Do you say yes?" Again, I kind of knew that this was going to happen to me sooner or later. And it was happening to the girls at my school. Some of them had told me that they already got engaged to a boy from India, or maybe an Indian boy from England. I knew it was going to happen. And I knew also that I couldn't say no, even though I was only 14. I couldn't say no because this was my mom. She knew better for me. And I knew this was my culture. If I had said, no, I'm too young, I would have been slapped. My mom would have said, "Who do you think you are? Your friend's getting married to a boy from India. Who do you think you are? Like, you're not special." And so before I knew it, a couple of weeks passed. And when I saw the boy, I'd only seen a picture of him until that point. I didn't like really think, "Oh, wow, he's a good looking boy," or, "Oh, I'm so excited." Nothing like that. I just knew that, this is the boy that I was shown a picture of, and now I have to meet him. I followed the instructions my mom told me. So I sat next to him. I said hello, and he, after a little while, we started to pose for pictures for the camera. He put his arm around my shoulder. Everybody was drinking like tea, and there was samosas there and food. So it was kind of a party, but I didn't realize right then. I think only over the years I realized it was my engagement party, but at that point I didn't really know. I just thought it was a gathering just to meet the boy. And so that was how I was engaged. When I was 15, we were told that we were going on a family trip to India. And we weren't excited, me, my brother, and my two sisters. We weren't excited about going to India because we were on a 6-week holiday from school. And so we weren't excited about it. But then when we got there, we were told one day that we were going to the boy's house. And this hadn't been told to me before. So we went to his house, and I would realize later on again that this was my second engagement party. So really, it was a business trip, the business of arranged marriage. It really wasn't a holiday. We went back to England, and years went by. I remember sometimes the boy would make a call to us from India, and my mom would pass the phone to me, and she would say, "I have to talk to him." But I really didn't have anything in common. By now I was around about 16 and a half. We had moved from Bradford to Hull. I had already graduated school, because in England at that time, you can graduate when you're 15 and a half, 16. My mum didn't want me to go to college when I asked, so I was denied my rights to an education. And I had really wanted to go to college, but I couldn't. Instead, I'm supposed to get married. I was 14, just a child. I didn't really know any better. I just went along with what my parents wanted. But as I got to be closer to 18, I knew I couldn't go along with this. This is not what I wanted. I wanted the romance, like in the books. I wanted to meet the tall, dark, handsome stranger who would sweep me off my feet and take me out for dinner and, propose to me. I wanted that life. I didn't want the other, marrying this person that I didn't know. I knew, I couldn't say no now, because if I did, there's no way, my mom would accept that. I think I did try having a conversation with her one time that I, don't want to be married. And she told me, he's been waiting for you, since all this time. Oh, what are you saying? Are you stupid? Something like that. That's what she would say, things like that. And so I knew the only way to get away from this would be for me to be very smart about this. And I had to run away as soon as I turned 18. So the day when the taxi came, I was very, very nervous that day. I managed to get down the stairs and I was so scared, thinking somebody might be watching me or somebody might catch me. But I was able to get out into the backyard and open the gate and get into that taxi. And the whole time the taxi driver was driving to the bus station in Hull City Centre, I was scared that maybe they knew by now that I had gone or they saw me, and that they might be behind me just as I was going to get into the bus. Luckily, that didn't happen. But as I boarded the bus, again, my heart was really heavy, thinking, what if they've come here now? They know. And the whole trip, I was so scared and also sad, thinking, what have I done? I'm hurting my family. I shouldn't have done this. But there's no going back. It's something I knew I had to do, but I was also very scared and nervous about what was happening now, that this was a big step that I was taking. There's no going back. So anyway, I arrived in London and I stayed in a bed and breakfast hotel. I found one, the taxi driver who helped me to find a place. I just talked to somebody and told them I needed help, and he took me to a bed and breakfast, and I stayed there for at least a couple of weeks till I found a place that I could move to that was a little bit cheaper. And so anyway, I ended up staying in London for a couple of months, and I didn't call home in the very beginning because I had left home, and I was very I knew that they were probably looking for me, and I tried not to think about them, but I was homesick and I did miss them and I did worry about them. After about a couple of months, I did make the call home, and then when my mom answered, it seemed like when she found out it was me, she seemed very cold and distant, not even Davinder, come home, we miss you. It's why are you calling now? And then she told me that what I had done was bad, and that she also told me that my grandma was very ill. And I was really close to my grandma, so I thought my grandma was ill because of me, because of what I had done. And so I felt very guilty. And I didn't tell her on that call that I was come home, even though she did ask for me to come home. I didn't tell her on that call, but when I hung up the phone, I think the guilt was kind of getting to me that I had caused my grandma to be ill. So it was a little after that I made another call home, and I succumbed to giving in, to going back home. I wish I had never placed the call home, because when I finally did get back home to Hull, I discovered that my grandma was not ill. And before I knew it, the guilt and pressure were put on me to marry this boy. I was told, he's been waiting for me for 4 years, and how can they now say to his brother and to him that I didn't want to marry him? They've been waiting. His brother loves me like a sister. This boy wants to marry me and has been waiting. I didn't make him wait for me. My mom did this to me, but I had no choice now because they were waiting, and all the community knows that I was engaged to him. I gave in because I kind of realized that there's no getting away from them now. I can't run away again. If I have to marry this boy, I'll only have to run away from one person. I didn't want to stay with him, and I was going to get divorced from him. I was just going to go to do what they wanted to do to make them happy, to kind of so they would stop pressuring me, give into it, get there, and then I would deal with it. After the marriage, I would get away from him. The wedding date came up, and people were coming over. My family flew over from England, I wore red and gold, as is, the Indian tradition. I remember there was a party like right afterwards, and, you'll see a picture of them all dancing at the party. I'm not shown in the picture, but the person who I married is, dancing, and they're all like celebrating. And again, I've blocked out a lot. The next day, my mom asked, do you want to go on honeymoon anywhere? And I chose Italy because Italy was a country that I had, dreams of going to. I think just the romance books and things like that. So I chose Italy, and my mom booked a hotel for us in Venice and Rome. And so within a few days, like, she went back to England and we took our flight. She'd also planned on us moving once we got back from the honeymoon. She put a deposit down on a studio apartment so that when we came back, we would have our own place. I think I told him that I wanted to be divorced from him. And he was very upset and told me that I had to just allow more time for this. And that, it didn't help, our circumstances of us like sleeping separately. And I told him I didn't want to be with him and I didn't want this marriage. And he was like really, he acted surprised that I didn't want this marriage. So I told him I didn't want it. It was like arranged by my mom. And I think he called my family behind my back and just talked to my parents. And before I knew it, it was 6 weeks after the wedding, my dad came out to Denmark. My dad, when he arrived, he tried to talk me into staying with him. And he says that you should both come back to England and, you can be around family. We'll help you. And I said, no, I have nothing in common with him. I don't want to be with him. I want a divorce. And my dad realized that he wasn't making me change my mind. And I think he was upset about that. He was upset that I wasn't listening to him, and he sought out a bar to go to. My husband took him to the bar and they were gone for a few hours. And then when my husband came back alone, I could tell something was wrong. Like he turned on the music and I instantly knew something was about to happen. I just had this horrible feeling. And then he approached me and told me, if I can't have you, no one else is going to have you either. And he proceeded to strangle me and put his hands on my neck. He pushed me over to where I slept, the sofa bed, and just proceeded to strangle me and to have his way with me. And I knew that if I didn't give in to his demands, that it would really be my end, because I knew he was angry and upset. So I don't know how I even managed to do this, but I told him, I said, I'm so sorry that I've been a really bad wife to you. I'm going to change. Please forgive me. I'll do whatever you want. I'll be a good wife. And I told him I was sorry. And I think he felt less angry because I was apologizing and begging for his forgiveness, and he released his hold on my neck. But he still proceeded to have his way with me. When he was done, he got dressed and told me he was going to get my dad, and that when my dad returned, that I couldn't say anything about this to my dad. So I just nodded. And as I was left alone in that apartment, I felt so alone and so scared that I knew that when my dad came back, that I was going to tell my dad straight away that, Dad, my husband just me, and he was going to kill me. And I knew that my dad would help me. However, when my husband came back with my dad a little while after, actually, I'm sorry, my husband didn't come back, but it was my dad. And my husband had gone to the store to get something. I don't know what he had gone to get. My dad came on his own. And I told him, I said, Dad, my husband just me and he was strangling me. And you wouldn't believe what my dad said to me. He said, he's your husband. He has every right to do that to you. I was shocked. My dad who I had reached out to would not even help me. And I was in a strange country where they had put me with the stranger that they had put me with. And now he told me that he had every right to do this to me, but who gave him the right? They gave him the right. And so I knew instinctively that I had to get away from both of them. My husband came back and I asked them, would they like a cup of tea? And they said yes. And I went out to the kitchen, and I don't even know how I knew that this was my opportunity, but I knew I had to get away that night. I just knew it. And so I put the water on to boil. I grabbed my handbag, and they didn't see me, but I grabbed it and I went down that hallway really softly and quietly, and I opened the door and closed that quietly behind me, and I went down those 100 steps. And I was fearful again that they were following me. But I managed to get downstairs, out onto the street, and I got a taxi and I went to a friend's house. And this is how I escaped. I didn't see my husband again. And all my things, all my belongings were at the apartment, my gold, my jewelry, the clothes my mom had bought for me. Everything was gone. And I filed for divorce. And I did try calling home, a few days after this incident. And my mom was really mad with me on the phone. And when I told her what my husband did, it's basically the same thing that my dad said. My mom didn't say as many words, but it's he's your husband, and they treated him like a son. He wasn't their son, he was their son-in-law. But boys are more valuable in Indian culture than girls. And so now he was almost their son because he had married their daughter. And they were more concerned about him than my well-being. And my mom told me that I need to get back with him. I need to go back to him, that all will be forgiven. And of course I didn't want to go back to him after what he had done. And so I hung up the phone with her. And then when I tried to call her again, she wouldn't talk to me. So I got disowned by my family for about 1.5 years. It wasn't until I was I moved to America in 1992, and then I put myself through college, first on the East Coast and then in San Diego. And it's hard, especially because now I have 3 kids. But when you have kids, to also concentrate on your education, it's not as easy as when you go to college, right after school. That's the time to go to college before you have kids and a family. And I realized even then that, wow, these people here in San Diego at least don't seem to know that this is happening. And I knew then that I had to start maybe talking about this. And so first I couldn't do the public speaking, and it was just social media. And I came across other people who were talking about child marriage and forced marriage. And it wasn't too many people back then. It was 2010 when I graduated. Very few people were speaking about it. And when I heard the story of one of the survivors, her story seemed to be my story. She grew up in the UK, and this was happening to her at the age of 14, 15, where she was shown a picture and her sisters were shown a picture. That was my life. That was the same as all the Punjabi girls, but what the other people just don't realize here in this country or in San Diego or at San Diego State University, they didn't know this was going on. But yet when I read other stories, I know their pain is my pain. What they went through, I went through very, very similar. It was my story. And so my heart breaks when I read those stories because, again, my pain just opens up. She showed me a picture of a boy when I was 14. I was engaged at 14, even though the marriage happened at 18. That should never happen to any child. This is very, very wrong. No one should be robbed of their childhood. No one should ever be forced to marry a stranger and be put into danger. I was used for my citizenship so that somebody could come into Britain and get my citizenship. I am mad about that. I didn't know that was happening to me then, but now I realize what happened. And this is very wrong. No one should be forced to marry a stranger and be put into danger. This is wrong. No one should be used for their citizenship. And children should be allowed to enjoy their childhood.